Welcome to This is the Gospel, an LDS Living podcast where we feature real stories from real people who are practicing and living their faith every day. I'm Erica Free, and I'm so excited to be hosting this episode today that is all about love, because it's Valentine's Day here in the US. And I don't know about you, but I've always kind of liked Valentine's Day. It is not because I always have a significant other to celebrate with or anything. I'm actually usually single for Valentine's Day, but I still enjoy it. And I think for me, it started all the way back in elementary school. So I don't know about you, but my elementary school in the States, we would decorate these boxes and hang them at the end of our desks and walk around and give out candy to each other. And so you'd go home with so much candy, and I thought it was the best holiday ever. So later, when I was on my own in college, I remember wanting to make Valentine's Day special for the people around me. I just would buy chocolates and give them out to my friends. I would write little notes and wear pink and red. And I just really loved celebrating love. And I started to see Valentine's Day not as a day to celebrate romantic love only, but as a day where you can celebrate all different types of love. And that includes love for coworkers, love for family, love for friends, love for a significant other if you have one, or even love for Christ and the gospel. And we have the perfect story for you today that touches on all those different types of love and what they can mean to someone. Our storytellers for today are Ricky and Alexis. Okay, so I knew Ricky from back in high school. He played basketball with my little brother. He and his wife just celebrated their 3rd anniversary last September. Both Ricky and Alexis are cancer survivors. And even though they've survived cancer, they still struggle with various health problems. So to help keep Alexis as comfortable as possible, we recorded at their house instead of a studio where we usually record. So you might catch some background noise of their home life. I think it just adds a great atmosphere for their story. So without further ado, here are Ricky and Alexis.
Do you want me to start? Okay.
Go ahead.
So we met in March of 2016. We were in the clinic at Primary Children's. I had neuroblastoma, which is cancer of the nerves, and Ricky had leukemia. He had ALL. And I was walking to my room. I had just had a pretty major surgery, 12-hour surgery, about a month prior. And so I was just learning how to walk again. My scar was bright red. It cuts across my diaphragm and down my entire stomach. So anyways, I was getting to my room. My nurse was taking me to my room, and from the room across from mine, I heard Hotline Bling by Drake. Is when it first came out. And I was like, oh, I like this song. And the nurse was like, have you ever met Ricky? And I was expecting, maybe a little 5-year-old boy who's bald, and this 6'2", tall, handsome, dark-haired guy comes out and starts dancing and making me laugh. And we start talking, and I start asking questions. I asked him what cancer he had, and
She was checking if I was legit.
Yeah, I was getting some credit
really
first.
A cancer kid.
Yeah, I needed to make sure that he was a legit cancer kid and not just. It threw me off because he had hair, and usually that's not something you see on the cancer unit. And so he pulled down. He had a port scar that's kind of in the middle of his chest, and instead of just pulling his shirt down from the top, he lifts it up, showing all of his abs.
Yeah.
And, as a 15-year-old girl, I'm like, oh my goodness. And it worked. I knew exactly what he was doing, but it worked. And I was like, I love this boy. I need to follow him. I need to see what he's doing. And I stalked his Instagram, stalked his Facebook, and then I was thinking, and I was like, okay, what can I say? How can I start a conversation with him? What can I say? And so the pickup line that I decided on was, hey, have you ever had radiation? And
still the cheesiest pickup line to this day.
I got it.
Like disappointing.
And he gave me
I'm not gonna lie.
Disappointing.
I think the one of the funnier parts that she's actually pretty excited to talk about that she missed, though, is that she mentions me lifting my shirt up to show her my abs, obviously. And I have a tiny port scar.
Yes, it's about 2 inches. That's what I was saying. That's right. So it was about 2 inches.
You got it. Go ahead. This is the part that you like to tell. I just wanted to remind you.
Thank you. It's about 2 inches, and he pulled his shirt up and showed all of his abs. And I was like, yeah, I have one of those. And my port was accessed at the time. I was like, I have one of those. And I was like, but I had this too. And I showed him my scar that was brand new all across my stomach. And he was like, oh, yours is way cooler. And immediately put his shirt down.
Very humbling experience right away. Right away. Never have had to step up on that. And then we just
became best friends, and Ricky would come and visit me, even though he was super busy with basketball and high school and just teenage life.
As a teenager, you're always looking for somebody to like be around. Especially at that time, I was looking for just a friend, because I'm at primary children's and there's only kids. And
not very many teenagers.
Just so happened to be that Lexi was one of the older patients, and she was beautiful. Like, she was bald, and she was really, really skinny, but there was just this, it just beamed from her, this love and beauty. And it's really hard to describe it, because like, she didn't have any eyelashes, you know, she was looking like she was really beat up, obviously. But that quality of just love was undeniable. And that's what drew me to her initially. And then as we spent time together, as my visits, you know, were more frequent, the relationship and the personalities start to develop. But yeah, she's always had a very, very phenomenal way of just showing love, even without words. And that's what drew me to her initially.
That's sweet of you. The thing that drew me to Ricky was his goofiness and his ability to just laugh when things are hard. That was something that I always knew I needed in my eternal companion, because I knew my life was going to be hard and I needed somebody who could make me laugh every day. So that was probably the biggest thing that stood out to me when I first met you. But now I could list a million things that I love about you.
Thank you.
And it grows every day. So he left on a mission to Boston, Massachusetts, an LDS mission, and we emailed every week and just his best friends. And then he relapsed 8 months in, and he got transferred to New York because he wasn't healthy enough to fly home. I flew out to New York to make sure he was okay. And then he kissed me in the hospital bed in New York, and we started dating, and then 10 months later we were married.
The thing is that like mine and Lexi's relationship before I left on my mission was nothing more than just straight a friendship, somebody who understood what we'd been through.
Yeah, we were really close friends.
While I was on my mission, I was about 4 months into my mission. I had a moment where I realized that I was going to marry her. And I was honestly pretty frustrated at first. I'm like, I'm 4 months into my mission. Like, don't give me these thoughts. Don't do this to me. You know, I just barely got into a new area, trying to get focused. And I was like, I got too much on my plate to worry about this girl that's at least 20 months away. It just was undeniable. I couldn't shake it, you know, and so I just learned to embrace it. And it was a great motivating factor for me, obviously not realizing how soon I was going to be home. It was planted there pretty early on so that I could make that preparation when that time came. So it's a little bit cheesy, but yeah, when she showed up in New York, I was excited.
Got a little bit teary-eyed.
And
gave me a hug.
I've always been very cautious in relationships.
I surprised him, by the way. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah.
It was a surprise.
It was. But she talks about the kiss like casually, like that was a big deal for me.
It was, yeah.
Like that was me saying, I'm here. I'm in it. Full send. and it stuck, obviously, luckily for me. So.
He didn't tell me, by the way, that he knew he was going to marry me, and like he didn't fill me in until he kissed me, and then as soon as he kissed me, I knew that was who I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And even a few months after we started dating, I went to the temple and I was trying to be like, Heavenly Father, do I need to marry him, or, and it was like right away I got the affirmation, like, you already know, why are you asking? And so ever since then.
See, but she makes she makes herself seem so innocent in that moment. Like, I'm going to throw her under the bus here. But I made my intentions very clear.
You did.
As soon as I had the chance. No, I'm going to tell this story because I'm still hurt by it today.
No, you're not.
But I took her on a date, and we'd been on dates before, and obviously we have a good time together. But this particular date, we were just driving, and I just turned over and I looked at her and I said, I'm going to marry you. Just blunt as all get out, right? Just like, this is happening. And she straight up stone cold looked me in the eyes and said, yeah, we'll see about that. And that was so crushing. Like, I've just put it all on the line. I've literally made this clearer than day. And you're going to say, yeah,
it was a lot.
We'll see about it.
It was a lot.
We'll see about that. I was like, nah. So,
scared me a little bit.
Still a little bit hurt by it, but that's okay.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. Anyway.
So Ricky, like I said, he had relapsed and it wasn't looking good. And he was getting ready for a bone marrow transplant. And I remember a couple people asked me after we got engaged, they were like, well, what if he dies? How do you know? How do you know he's going to be okay? And I had told him, I don't know that he's going to be okay. But I know that Heavenly Father needs us to be together. And he needs us to be together right now.
I love that. I love the way you said that.
He had just finished treatment when we got married. So we got married in September. And so his body was still pretty tired from treatment. His hair was growing back.
I still was on chemo pills. So it's not like I was completely, I was done with the hospital stays, but I still had to do the maintenance phase of keeping everything at bay. And I did that for probably a year and a half, almost 2 years after we were married. For me, I'm a very realistic and logical soul. Lexi's very, very good with faith. I have faith. My mind is very like, all right, the doctors say this, that's likely going to happen. So going into marriage with Lexi was never scary. But that realization of we're probably not going to be that couple on our front porch in our rocking chair at 80, like that was real, and still to this day, we don't know what the heck's going to happen. If we make it to that, great. Well, that would be wonderful. Awesome. But just our body's sustainability and everything is not that of healthy people. There's been multiple times throughout the course of our marriage where the doctors have come to me and said, don't expect her to make it through the night. And as a human, that messes with you, right? And so my emotional and my mental and spiritual state at times have been pretty shot because I've seen her in some extremely vulnerable and painful states. And I've had my moments of just saying, why in the world are you sticking around? Not because I don't want her here with me, but because watching her suffer is so hard. And that's a selfish thing to say. Like, hey, yeah, how about you're done so that I don't have to watch you suffer anymore? And looking back on it, there's been times where I was so broken and so sad that seemed to me the only way that things would get better. And that's not a very fun thing to go through. It's not a very fun thing to process. And it never gets easier to have the doctors come say, hey, she's not going to make it. All the other things aside, I love being married to her. I love having her as a companion. my greatest joy is my wife, and I've never seen somebody more Christ-like. Watching
really
her
sweet.
every single day is joyous to me. And the traits that she has, I think being her cheerleader and watching her is the most fun thing.
He's the best cheerleader.
Thank you.
He really is.
I have cheer moves too.
He does. Dance moves that made me fall in love with him.
Oh yeah.
It's just fun to experience life with him, to experience the joy, to experience the pain. We are insanely grateful. We're grateful for every day that we have with each other, and that's something that we did and that we kind of learned while we were going through the trials is every moment with each other is so special. Mm-hmm. We're not, like I've really grown as a wife to where, Ricky doesn't wash his clothes or, leaves his clothes on the floor. I'm not gonna immediately turn to anger. I'm gonna, I'm more grateful for just him being there. And don't get me wrong, sometimes we still actually all the time, we,
Don't make us sound bad. We sound good right now.
I know. I'm just saying,
Just kidding.
our fights, we try to have an eternal perspective on things.
I think
Whether we do that or not, I don't know, but we try.
I think what she's trying to say, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we don't fight about the things that other 20-year-old couples
yeah,
fight.
Newlyweds,
And communication is so key, and it's so hard.
It's so hard.
But, when you've been through a trial such as ours, you're forced to grow up.
One thing, too, is that, for us, we're talking about our trials and what is hard for us, but I think it's important to say that our trial isn't more or less important than any other trial.
Absolutely.
For us, it's health issues and cancer and what comes with it, but for others, it's depression or family problems. You know what I mean? We all have these trials that we go through, and they give us the opportunity to learn more about our loving Savior Christ. And I think it's really amazing to feel that love and to feel that peace in those hard times. We still have those hard times every day, but our approach to them is so different, and we do feel joy in our lives, even though they're extremely hard, even though it's so hard. Even yesterday, I had one of those days, where everything goes wrong, and we've lost 9 of our close friends, one of them being my very best friend. And that's been something that's been really, really hard to deal with every day. But I can feel of the Savior's love, and I know that my friends are surrounding me. I know that they're right there, and I know that I will be able to hug them again soon. That's the thing for Ricky and I as well, is that we know if my my physical trial on earth here ends, then I know that Ricky and I will be reunited again soon. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Did that come across?
You said that so well.
Okay.
You did great. But along the lines of selfless love and service, we went on a trip to Zion's National Park. I'd never been. I was excited. Lexi's family's been before, and trips are for anybody in high school, college, you can pack up and go take off and hang out there for a bit. But for us, that's a big deal. That takes bringing all of Lexi's medical equipment. It takes bringing a wheelchair. It takes planning for her feeds, all of that stuff. it's not a burden by any means, but it's just not like, hey,
easy.
get in the car in 15 minutes. We're out of here. That doesn't happen. So it was a big thing, and I stress really.
It was also
easily.
my 21st birthday.
It was.
You're celebrating my birthday. Trip. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. We were going to next.
You're okay. But I'm a sensitive soul, and I stress really easily, especially when it comes to Lexi. So when we got there, I was worried because it was really hot, and I could already see that she was torched. And she's like, no, I don't want my wheelchair. She's stubborn in the sense that she wants to do as much as she can before her body just can't. And she tried, and it hit pretty early. And so as we were on our way through the park, we stopped at the first bus stop to get her a wheelchair to actually get to all of the different destinations, the different tourist spots, I guess is the best way to say that. They have buses that drive you from place to place. And they're like 30 passengers in one part, and then it's connected, and there's another tagging bus behind it that are connected. And we ran back and got her in the wheelchair and got in line for the next bus, and it was a pretty big show. And anyway, so we're standing there in the line, and they pull the ramp down. Takes forever. It's really loud. Everybody's watching. Start loading her into it, and like I said, it's a big scene, and people are obviously wondering.
Inconvenience for sure.
Like, people are curious. That's a normal human instinct. Why is that person in a wheelchair? Why is that person?
I look healthy.
Bald. Why does that person need a walker? Like anytime. And I'm not innocent from being curious.
Right.
And I could see people pointing and people whispering and stuff. And we got onto the bus, and it already had passengers on it. And the bus driver asked a few people to move out of the seat where her wheelchair would be. So they stood up and they went to the back of the bus, and we get in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we got her on. Let's just get to the next destination. Let's get her off so we can wheel her around. And a couple minutes into the ride, we stop at a stop, and our bus was so full that Lexi's family had to be on the back part of the bus where we were detached. We couldn't communicate. I just see her parents jump out of the back bus and hustle up. They're like, we got to get off. This bus is going down the mountain. Rather than up to where all the spots are that we wanted. And so there's a little moment of crud. Let's get her out of here real quick. And so I go and I start to unstrap her seat from all of the latches that the bus has to offer. And I was struggling with them. I was just feeling overwhelmed. I couldn't get them off, and I was missing them. And I heard this just sigh of, and then, are you kidding me? Now they're getting off. And I was like so mad. It really killed my vibe. And I understand people that mentioned it were the same people that had just gotten out of their seat to be there for Lexi.
Yeah, it's a lot to ask. I get that.
I don't know that I've ever felt anyone made small or bad because of a struggle that they're facing. At least not to my knowledge.
It made me feel really small. It made, like, I'd never felt like that before. Like, I already put a lot of pressure on myself, and I already, like I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. That's why I didn't want my wheelchair right away, is because I didn't want to inconvenience anybody else's life. So I already felt like really bad about it. And then just like knowing that I actually did inconvenience them, it hurt, because that wasn't my intention. I was just trying to, enjoy my birthday, enjoy the weekend.
And I think my frustration came from the comments are obviously about the situation that we're in, but Lexi can't control that. She can't control that. That's what needs to happen for her to enjoy life. If she could, she'd be the same person that got out of the seat, so somebody else in a wheelchair would be there, right? And so to me, I'm just like, and that's really what got me boiling. And so when we got out of the bus, like her parents carried her out, and I was lifting her wheelchair, and I kind of just dropped it. Like, it didn't put it down. I just like kind of chucked it, and it bounced, and I started walking away, and I was really ticked. And thinking back on it, like, I overreacted.
He's very protective of me. Very protective of me.
And I definitely overreacted for sure. But I didn't say anything mean. I didn't yell at him. it's crazy how quick we can get angry. And it's crazy how quick we can be to just judge others, and for all we know, their day, they could have been like, oh crap, why are they getting off now? I have to be somewhere. Like, I have to pick my daughter up from school, or crap, my husband's in the hospital and they don't let visitors out, And so back, like looking back on it, I'm not proud of how I handled it. Anyway, so after I calmed down, it was fun. It was so much fun. I mean, just pushing her around. I love pushing her in a wheelchair. Like, I wish I didn't have to, but there's times where it takes that, and it's like holding her.
Makes it easier for me, and
for me, it's like holding her hand and walking. Like, I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah.
And we had such a good time. And then as we were getting ready, our day was getting done. A big storm was moving in. And so everybody was leaving at the same time. We're at the very top, last stop in the park. And everybody's moving to the bus stop at the same time. So the anxiety and the frustration was starting to kick in again. And I was like, crap. People are going to be watching. People are going to be pointing. I don't know how I'll react this time. So we get in line and we waited, and it was long. I mean, not terribly long, but long. And as we got about 3/4 of the way through the line, the same bus that we were on the first time pulled up, and the bus driver jumped out and he picked us out of the crowd and said, come to the front of the line. Getting picked out is always a little weird, but then getting to skip people in line's even weirder, and so you already feel that pressure of, hey, sorry, I know you're here first.
It's an inconvenience.
And the whole show started again. They rolled the thing out, the ramp, and so the ramp starts its way up, and everybody's watching. They didn't open the back bus. There was buses behind us that weren't, close enough for people to get in yet. And we get on the ramp, and it starts to lift us up, and about halfway up, just goes click, 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 and then stopped. And I was like, crap. And I thought that my weight standing on it this time was too much. So I just jumped up into the bus and said, all right, try it again. And he lowered her down and then lifted her up again, and it click, 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 and stopped again, and just couldn't get in. And it was the weird in between where we couldn't pull her wheelchair in, but we couldn't just put her on the ground. She was like 2 feet off the ground or something like that. Maybe that's a little much, but just not there, right? When you feel like people are watching you sometimes, it's like, all right, everybody's watching us and they're shooting laser beams at us right now. Like, that's what it felt like. Yeah. Like, you can feel the heat burning your skull. And I was panicking, and I was like, crap, not again. Like, no, please. And so the bus driver, I don't even remember exactly what happened. We're just like, let's just throw her in the bus. So he lowered it down again, but she was so exhausted that she couldn't stand by herself. And so her parents actually had her by each arm, and her sisters were there, but her sisters were kind of standing in the back, like not knowing what to do, but they're understanding the situation.
Yeah, they knew that if I needed any help at all, they were right there to be the first ones to help.
More not involved, because it would have made things more difficult than easy, right? And I remember that I couldn't, like, the ramp was still out, and it was in a weird spot to where I couldn't just grab her wheelchair and pick it up into the bus. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like freaking out, trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do now? Everybody's already watching. And at this point, the buses behind us just started opening up their doors. They're like, this is taking too long. I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to reach over the ramp to close her wheelchair up so we can pull it up in here? And out of nowhere, one of the people who could have very well just gotten onto the back part of the bus or the other buses stopped and started to try and fold her chair up.
It's very humbling.
And he didn't know how. And so Lexi's dad had to let go of her arm and help him fold it up. And then they lifted it up into the ramp with me, and they closed it all up, and we carried her into the bus. And so we're sitting there, and I'm holding on to Lexi as we're on the bus, and her family's filling in behind us, and the bus is filling up. And then that guy who helped walked past, and I said, hey, thank you so much for your help. And he said, no problem, and that was the extent of the conversation. And it wasn't until we were sitting in our hotel room that night. Alexis already crashed. She's wiped out. And I'm sitting there. And it just hit me like a brick. Like, I should say a ton of bricks. Mm-hmm. And like tears just started running down my face. For me, in that moment, that man was my angel. He was the Christlike example that I needed. Just like, golly. He acted out of love and acted out of selflessness. He wasn't thinking about himself.
I don't know, helped us realize that our Heavenly Father knows exactly what we need when we need it. Like he said, he wasn't thinking about himself. And that's kind of what we've tried to do ever since then, is make sure that we are spending our days not thinking about ourselves.
You know, growing up as a kid, you're taught that Jesus Christ is awesome. He's a superhero. But what made him so awesome? And just some of his characteristics of being selfless and loving and caring really help you understand why he was as great as he was. And I've learned a little bit, not anywhere close to what the Savior is, but I've learned a little bit about why he enjoyed serving so much. And that's because when we serve and we have love for that person, like we genuinely want to do good by them, that we find love and joy, and it comes back full circle. At the end of the day, going back to the first great commandment, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. The gospel has a whole bunch of principles, but love is the central point. That is why we come to earth, is to be in a loving family. That is why we strive to make it back to heaven, to be with our loving Heavenly Father. So love, the purpose of love, that's what the gospel is to me.
That was Ricky and Alexis. I love so many things about this, and you're going to notice me saying love a lot, but I'm excusing myself because it's Valentine's Day, so hopefully you don't get annoyed with me. But from the moment they welcomed me into their house when I went over to record, I was just so impressed with their kindness. And didn't you love just hearing the way that they talk to each other? I really loved getting to record them together and hear the little comments they made about how well the other one was doing. And sharing your story can be a vulnerable thing, but they were so willing to share it. And that just really showed me how loving they are in all areas of their life. But do you see what I mean now, what I meant at the beginning about how their story shows all different kinds of love? We see the love that Ricky and Alexis had at the beginning, just as friends supporting each other, and then them as a couple, the love they had for their friends, the love they have for their families, and also their love for God. I love how you could feel both of their love for God and Christ so strongly. The one, though, that stood out to me the most and humbled me the most was the love that stranger had for them while they were waiting for the bus. The thing that got me the most about that is how that stranger didn't even know how to fold up a wheelchair. I thought of how many times that I've passed by someone in need because I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I can't help them. Like, I'm just going to be a nuisance. But it was so humbling to hear that, because even though he didn't know, just his act to help meant the world to Ricky and completely changed the memories of this vacation for him. And honestly, it was probably a pretty small thing for that stranger. I don't know that he remembers it now, but it's something that has made a continued difference in Ricky and Alexis's life. And, you know, their whole story just really makes me think of how President Monson said it best when he said, love is the essence of the gospel. And I've learned that sometimes that love looks like taking the risk to commit to life with another person when we have absolutely no guarantees of health or happiness. And sometimes it's not snapping at the customer service person on the other end of the line, which is so hard. And sometimes it's grieving. Sometimes it's listening. I think sometimes it's laughing. Whatever it is, I've learned that love is the essence of the gospel, and we are capable, sometimes more than we think we are, of bringing that love into our lives and the lives of those around us every day. And I think that there's nothing more Christ-like than that. That's it for this episode of This is the Gospel. Thank you to our wonderful storytellers, Ricky and Alexis, for sharing so much of their story with us and for doing it with so much kindness. And we didn't have time to go over their whole story in this short episode, so if you want to read more about that, we'll put a link to Ricky's blog in the show notes and you can keep up with their journey. You can find our show notes at ldsliving.com/thisisthegospel. Now, as always, all of the stories in this episode are true and accurate as affirmed by our storytellers. If you have a true story you want to share with us, we definitely want to hear it, so you can call and pitch your story on our pitch line at 515-519-6179. Not only do we find many of our storytellers this way, but we also get great ideas for episode themes. So be sure to use your 3 minutes wisely to help us get a clear sense of the beginning, middle, and end of your story. And now, if you want to find tips on how to pitch your story, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at thisisthegospel_podcast. We have lots of fun resources there. Also, if you've enjoyed any of these episodes, you can leave us a review on Apple, Stitcher, or whatever platform you listen on. Reviews help our podcast to show up in recommendations for new people so that they can find us. And also, all of the producers and editors on this podcast, we love reading those reviews. They help us know that our work is connecting with people. This episode was produced and edited by me, Erica Free, with help from Katie Lambert and Corinne Lay. It was scored, mixed, and mastered by Mix at 6 Studios. Our executive producer is Aaron Hallstrom. You can find past episodes of this podcast and other LDS Living podcasts at ldsliving.com/podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.